Sir, let's go through the economic provisions here in these proposals. How do they look like compared to the 1987 Constitution?
Okay. So I think one of the things that you'll notice with the amendments, and they're online, by the way, you can download them, and everybody should take part in this discussion. They put the sentence unless provided by law.
By
No?
law.
Okay. The implication of which is that, and you take House Bill 78, the current initiative being discussed now. This is the amendment of the Public Service Act now, as a model. The goal is to open up the economy, ownership of the economy to foreigners. No? It's very clear in the IATF proposal that they're doing away with caps, the 60-40. But although not explicit in the amendments, unless provided by law, the implication of which is that a law will be, after these amendments are ratified, will be made to open up the economy. And when we say open up the economy, we're talking about media, telecommunications, we're talking about utilities. All of these strategic industries will now suddenly be opened up to companies that are not necessarily owned by Filipinos. So that's the major implication of this. Some people argue that this will help spur foreign investment into sectors of our economy that are underdeveloped. No? Others are saying that we will lose sovereignty, economic sovereignty. No? Well, the nationalists amongst us are saying, some industries should be, protected, like telecommunications, like energy. But the implication of this relaxing of these provisions is that, that's it, that ownership of these once only for Filipino owned sectors will now be opened up to foreigners.
But doesn't it need a constitutional amendment? That kind of, can you do it by way of legislation only?
No, that's why they're pushing it through these amendments. They're opening up.
The 87 Constitution is quite explicit. You really have to make an amendment to it. But there are, again, the pros and cons to the phrase unless otherwise provided by law. Because essentially, it's a strategy. Well,
can you pass a law? Law lang.
Yun nga. No. If you have to amend the current Constitution, but for you to operationalize it, you will need a law. Now, the logic to that phrasing, again, this came from the Bayanihan draft, is that you want to be very specific. Which industry will you be opening up and how? For example, in fact, it started with the discussion on the real property. I mean, if you look at other countries, like, if I'm not mistaken, Thailand, real property is allowed, foreigners can own real property, but outside Bangkok. So, in other words, if you're relocating, business, for example, and you want to own land for purposes of manufacturing, they opened up the other area. So that's where Chiang Rai, Chiang Mai happened, because it sort of invited investors in the fringes of Thailand. So that can be an economic strategy. On the other hand, there's also a reason why Professor Ranjit was saying meron ding agam-agam yung mga nationalists. Kasi nga, we have very weak public institutions. Before you open up, you want to make sure that your public institutions actually can rein on these foreign companies coming in. Because our public institutions are so weak, ang hirap ng regulation mo. Yeah, that's your regulatory institutions.
Oo, bakit ba problema mo itong ABS-CBN? Actually, hindi naman yung prangkisa ang problema mo. Ang problema mo yung regulasyon yung pag-regulate sa kanila. So, in other words,
NGCP, di ba?
That's right. So, the solution there is you bring in more players, but make sure that the public institutions are ready to actually accommodate new players.
I agree, yung regulatory framework natin, the institutions, and even the legal framework has to be revisited before we open up. But anyway, this is a big debate.
Yes.
And even within the group, within the committee, there's a debate of whether, let's say, for example, we open up private land. The IATF does not agree. Private land should still remain in the hands of Filipinos.
So walang unless provided for?
No. That's their position. But in the position of some members of the House, we open up everything. A second thing that the IATF sort of progressively advocated is that natural resources is owned by the state, and the state is not just there to give it away. Its primary role is to conserve and protect it.
That's right.
So that's in one of the provisions. So it's important position taken by the IATF on this issue. We don't just open up. okay, our own patrimony, where the state is responsible for protecting it for future generations. So, you know, this is not just opening up economic, it's also looking at sustainable development. It's written down, actually, the term sustainable development. So, there's still a big debate about this, but I think there's more consensus here than with regards to the other amendments focusing on political reform.